seconds left in the game, and it's tied at 85. Clemens will inbound on the left side. Clemens looks and waits, flips to Snyder. Snyder sideline left. Snyder on the dribble drive to the hoop. Put it up. Good! It's good! Snyder scored with 4 seconds to go. And the Bullets take time. Cleveland 87 and Bullets 85 with 4 seconds to go. Munsell gets the ball from Jake O'Donnell at 7. Center floor. Here comes the play. Munsell lobs it underneath. Snyder knocks it free. Ball picked up by Shadir. Shoots up. No good. No good. Cavaliers win. The Cavaliers win. 87-85. The Cavaliers have defeated the Washington Bullets 87-85. And the crowd is going berserk at the Coliseum.
My, oh my, that does bring back some memories, I would assume, for most of you who are watching right now on WLCS TV 20 Lorain City Schools Television. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Alcorn with AM 930 WEOL. And, of course, the voice you just heard, captured right here on this album, The Miracle of Richfield, Joe Tait, the voice of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And, of course, Joe has sat in the guest chair for many, many years on Sports Scene. We welcome him back to the program. And, Joe, I tell you what, that kind of raises the hair on the back of my neck. Does it still give you a goosebump or two?
It does until I remember that it was 30 years ago. And I get a cold chill.
Can anything ever top it? I mean,
sure. Absolutely. I mean, old guys like me, and you say, all of you out there who are watching this, remember, a lot of people who are watching this weren't born back in those days.
Right.
But for you old folks, why, it does bring back a lot of good memories. And sure, the one thing the Cavaliers have never done is win an NBA championship. And that is what is left to go over the top for the Cavaliers franchise.
I want to hold up this album one more time because you and I were talking before we came out on the air. An interesting story behind Miracle in Richfield. This is Joe Bach's personally autographed copy, by the way. If I see this out on eBay, Joe Tait, I'm going to know who's looking to make a few bucks. But interesting story about the Miracle in Richfield. Take a few seconds and talk about whose idea it was to put together an album of that unbelievable season and playoff series, and kind of tell our viewers what you were telling me before we came on the air.
Well, back in those days, the morning man on then WWE was Larry Morrow, and it was Larry Morrow's idea to put together the album, and he got together with Tom Imbruglia, who was the general manager at the time, and they were the ones that put the album together. They made 10,000 copies, and they sold them all.
Wow.
And if you've got one, you've got something that would probably bring a little money just from a memento type of thing. And then about 15 years later, Jimmy Milletti, Nick Milletti, who owned the team at the time, Jimmy Milletti, his son, put out a cassette of that very album. And I don't know how Jimmy did, but Jim usually does pretty good on whatever he does, so I would imagine he made a buck or two as well.
That's interesting. Do you ever go back and listen to some of those great games and some of those calls, just for the heck of it?
Yeah, I have several drawers full of tapes, and I've got them all the way back to the first one I ever did at Monmouth College, and that takes me all the way back to 1956, when it was done on an acetate tape.
Oh my.
And I've still got it, and do listen to it on occasion. Quality is a little grim, but you can still hear the play-by-play, and you sit and listen to that and say, you know what, that guy make a good bus driver.
And your first Cavalier game, since we're on the subject, do you remember the very first Cavalier game you called?
Yeah, the first Cavalier game I called was not on the air. It was the home opener. And I did it on a tape recorder up in the hockey press box at the end of the old Cleveland Arena, hanging on the wall.
Oh my!
Kind of like Keystone High School, only bigger. And they took the tape after the game, gave it to Nick Milletti, the owner, and I went back across the street to spend the night. And in the morning, Bob Brown called me. He was Nick's personal secretary and also the guy who'd done the play-by-play for the first 8 Cavalier games. called me and said, Nick would like to see you in his office, and I went across the street, and he offered me the job, and so I called back to Terre Haute, Indiana to tell them that I wouldn't be coming back, and they said, well, that's okay, the station has just been sold and the new owner has already announced he's cleaning house. So the change was fortuitous.
So the first one you actually did on the air would have been the very next ball game?
That was, no, the very next ball game, I drove back to Terre Haute to pack my bags and get ready to come back to Cleveland. The next ball game was at Philadelphia on a Monday night, and Monday Night Football was in its infancy. But
1970.
the radio station opted to do the Monday Night Football game rather than the Cavaliers game at Philly, which tells you some idea of just what importance they were putting on the Cavaliers. So I drove back to Terre Haute, but I listened to the game while getting packed at WCAU in Philadelphia, 50,000 water. Andy Musser and Sonny Hill were the announcers. That was the night the Cavaliers were defeated 141 to 87 for the biggest loss in Cavalier history, 54 points.
Ugh.
And by the end of the evening, my wife was slam dunking my socks into the suitcase, saying things like, you gave up a good manager's job for that? Those people are saying this franchise won't last until the All-Star break, which indeed they were. And, yep, so I came back to Cleveland. Midge Badiger, who was the secretary in the office, gave me the wrong departure time for the flight to Buffalo. And when I discovered I'd missed the plane, I said to the gal at the desk there at Hopkins, how do you get to Buffalo? She says, go out of the driveway, take a left, and keep going. And so I went to Buffalo by car and broadcast the first game, the first actual Cavalier game I did. And they put the lines up in the hockey gondola rather than down on the floor. So I'm looking down on two teams from the tops of their heads down. And back in those days, afros were the big thing.
Right.
You get up there, you couldn't tell one afro from another. And so it was a real experience. Best part of that whole trip is I stayed over the next day and went out and went to Niagara Falls, which I'd never seen. And then I came back and stayed with the ball club the rest of the year.
And as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Did you ever think that in the year 2005 you'd still be behind the microphone? Did you ever envision that at all?
No, I've never been one to, cast my gaze years and years. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, here we are sitting as I'm talking to you. The team ownership is about to change. None of us know for sure what the new ownership will bring, so you don't think too far ahead, or if you do, it'll drive you nuts.
Well, let's travel down that path. The 2004-2005 edition of the Cavs, as you said, new ownership is about to take over. Do you know anything about this young man, relatively young guy out of Michigan that's going to assume control of the club from Gordon Gund?
42 years old.
That's my age.
Owns Quicken Loans. Yeah, well, what happened to you?
I'm sitting here at WLCS.
There's a message out there somewhere, folks. And, obviously very well-to-do. I haven't met him. I haven't even seen him. Those few that I have run into who have met him say he's a low-key guy, very friendly, but he likes the go, go, go atmosphere in his businesses. Now, what that means, I don't know, but we'll probably find out before too much longer. So I know nothing about him except the man did have $375 million to buy the Cavalier team.
You know, the other day I was listening on WEOL, plug for our own station here, but I was listening to a Cavalier game when they were running snippets of different parts of games from the past, and they also ran a snippet with you talking about the only reason you came back to Cleveland after departing for 2 years was Gordon Gund. That Gordon Gund was the reason you came back. So I would imagine there was some mixed feelings for you when you heard that Gordon was giving up ownership of the team.
Yeah, I had planned all along to retire when I was 70. A couple of years ago, Gordon came to me, and I'd never made any secret about that, and he said, I understand you're planning to hang it up when you hit 70. I said, yeah, I am. He said, well, what if we decide to stick around a little longer and see how this LeBron James thing comes out? Would you be willing to stay a little longer because, you know, as he tells me from time to time, I am his eyes. And I said, if you ask me to stay, Gordon, I will stay. And then I added, but if you decide to go, you let me know. And of course, he's going. So I had a great relationship with the man. I thought that he came through some very difficult times with the franchise, did it with class and honor. The Carlos Boozer thing was unfortunate because, as I mentioned to Gordon, he had a very good relationship with Carlos, excellent relationship. But he forgot to include two other factors in the equation when they asked Carlos to tread water for 3 weeks until he got out of that free agency period so they could do a deal with him. One, the agent, and I'm not so sure in retrospect the agent, outside of putting Carlos' name on the free agency list, I'm not so sure that the real fly in the ointment was his wife, who probably told Carlos, if you ever want to be up close and in person again, take the $68 million. And of course he did and went to Utah.
So obviously, from your vantage point, she was the driving force behind Carlos going out west.
Most wives are the driving force in our lives, in case you haven't noticed, Timothy.
Oh, I have figured that out in a big hurry, Joe.
Yes.
Big hurry. But certainly Drew Gooden has come right in and picked up right where Carlos probably would have been.
Well, you know, Jim Paxton's taken a lot of heat from a lot of very stupid people who don't know whether the ball's really blown up or stuffed, because Paxton was given orders, given orders to cut payroll. Let's get the overhead down. We're not going anywhere. We're floundering. And so he cut a lot of payroll, and some of the people they brought in who at the time, you go back and you think, yeah, that's a good draft choice. Well, it didn't pan out. And he really did what he was told to do. And now he has turned to make some moves that I think are very fortuitous, with Gooden especially. Anderson Varejao, and what a diamond in the rough he's turned out to be. So, right. Boy, I can't knock Pax at all. I think he's done a tremendous job coming off a period in time which I know was really driving him nuts, because no general manager likes to sit there and realize he's got the one row to hoe, and that's the one that says, get rid of these guys.
But certainly, I mean, you've always been known as someone who's been honest and has had candor as far as interviews are concerned. If Jim's draft choices were as good as his trades, his trades always seem to work out to our benefit, but the draft choices have not. Would you agree with that?
Well, he's had some down times with his draft choices, but I quickly add Red Auerbach, who is considered to be the godfather of professional basketball. You go back and look at his draft choices over the years, and he had some real clunkers, guys that couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. It's a crapshoot.
Right.
You don't know whether you're catching a guy at the top of his game in his senior year in college, where he's headed downhill, or you may be catching a guy who's not going to blossom for another 3 or 4 years. Yeah, he's made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. And the bottom line is, we got a ball club on the floor right now that is the foundation for probably the best basketball the Cavaliers have ever seen in the history of the franchise.
Well, let's talk about that. How good can this team be? As you and I sit down, we're about at the halfway point, a little bit past that. Cavaliers on pace to win about 45 to 50 games. Is that where you see them ending up?
Yeah, I think that's fair, 45-50. We've got more games at home than we do on the road, and the Cavaliers are playing excellent basketball at home. And as Lenny Wilkins used to say, that's what you do first. You learn how to win at home consistently, and then you start to learn how to win on the road. And that's exactly what's going on right now. It's not a championship ball club. I mean, I don't have to set aside my plans for June, because the Cavaliers will not be playing for the title this year. It should not come as a big shock to any of you, but that's the way it is. But they're only 1 or 2 guys away from playing in June.
So what do you think the missing pieces are? What does Jim now need to add to this club?
Well, they have to add a 2-guard that can score consistently, especially from the outside. Of course, everybody's choice is Michael Redd, and he is the absolute right guy for that spot. But You got to pay Z, you got to pay McGinnis, and a couple of years down the road, you're going to have to hold up Fort Knox to pay LeBron. So Michael Redd is going to bring top dollar. The question is, after you've unloaded $375 million to buy the team, how much more are you willing to put into that salary, that overage, that salary tax that they put on clubs that go over a certain limit? I mean, how much extra money are you willing to throw out? Now, that's something we don't know because Mr. Gilbert is not making those calls yet. Now, he may have another $375 million tucked away somewhere, and if he does, he'll probably do all of those things I just talked about, and we will be playing for a championship within the next couple of years.
Now, as Michael Corleone said in The Godfather, it's strictly business. Strictly business. But still, Gordon and Jim do have some sort of bond with Z because of everything he's been through and all literally the torture he put his body through to play NBA basketball
Yes.
again. Dan Gilbert doesn't have that bond with Z.
That's true.
Do you see him coming back under new ownership? Or do they say, listen, we had nothing to do with his past, we'll let him go?
My personal opinion is if they don't bring Zydrunas Ilgauskas back, get ready for Sagana Jop at center and then see how far you go.
So you think Pax and Paul Silas will say, do what you got to do to get this guy back here?
Well, Dan Gilbert's probably going to be the guy that makes that call. And I don't know what he's thinking about. I don't know what he's doing. But Zydrunas Ilgauskas is certainly the second best center in the Eastern Conference and one of the top 5 in the league. He's playing some of his best basketball. He takes care of himself. And he has himself said he feels he owes something to the organization because they stood with him during all of those years when he had the foot problems. I don't see how you can improve yourself by getting rid of Zydrunas Ilgauskas.
And some of the other pieces, you mentioned McGinnis. Do you think Jeff will be back?
Well, I think Jeff wants to come back. I think he wants to be part of this. All the guys on the team right now would really like to come back because they can see the same thing I see. We're teetering on the brink of being an extremely good basketball team. Just a piece here and a piece there, and look out, Charlie, we're ready to rumble.
I know you've been asked this question 100 times, but how good is LeBron compared to some of the greats that you've seen in your 30-plus years of broadcasting? And good Lord, how much better can he become?
LeBron James, if he keeps his head screwed on straight and stays healthy, can be the greatest basketball player ever to play in the National Basketball Association, bar none. He is just tapping the talent pool right now. And as he learns this league and becomes older and even wiser, we haven't even started to see what LeBron James can do. And put those extra ingredients out there, I mean, he could go triple-double every night without trying. Right now, he could do it on a regular basis, but as he says, and he's right, it would cost the team. If he was out there looking for stats, we wouldn't win some of the games we win because he'd be out there trying to launch the shot that wins the game rather than looking for the guy who's in a better position to do it. And that's one of the beauties of LeBron's game is that he is so team-oriented and win-oriented that if he thinks throwing the basketball to Zydrunas Ilgauskas at the top of the key with 2 seconds to go is better chance to win the game than him shooting a 3, he'll do it. And Z will respond, probably hit the shot.
Is there any part of let me ask you this, rather than any part of his game, what part of his game has surprised you the most?
I think it's just his court awareness. It's just how he sees the court and sees his teammates in the defense, with great talent. And I think he needs to improve on his outside shooting a little bit. But good Lord, he goes in there and he disappears from view surrounded by guys who are several inches taller, and all of a sudden here he comes right out of the crowd going up to the hoop. And no, we haven't seen the best of LeBron yet. I just hope the young man keeps on the straight and narrow and also stays healthy because he could provide Cleveland with the greatest basketball that any single individual has ever done in the history of this league. I really believe that.
He reminds you of probably Magic and maybe Oscar Robertson?
Right now, I would say Magic and Oscar. Oscar was brilliant because he too had the same court awareness. So did Magic. They rebounded, they assisted, they stole the ball, they shot the ball. They were the whole complete package. And not to denigrate Michael Jordan, who goodness knows is one of the great players of all time. But LeBron has a chance. He really has a chance to outdo them all and stand at the pinnacle as, at this point in time, the best guy ever to play in the NBA. And you know what? There's probably somebody down in a junior high or grade school or maybe still in diapers who one of these days is going to come along and the first thing we'll say is, he could be the next LeBron James, and then he might be number one. There is no such thing as he's the greatest and it will never get greater, because it always does get greater.
You know, when we first started out, we were talking about the miracle of Richfield and just the unabashed enthusiasm and excitement that you had in your voice when you called those games. It seems as though when I listen to the games now, I hear a little more enthusiasm from you. I mean, just winning and the crowds and so forth. Does that generate enthusiasm for you, Joe?
Tim, winning does wonders. 2 years ago, we were 17-65,
That's
Tim.
Right.
So that does not engender a whole lot of enthusiasm. Sure, you get excited. The better the team, the more exciting the team, the more wins, the more excited you get.
But certainly, as you've told me on many occasions, when you get up and walk away from the booth, your name's not in the box score.
That's right.
So you can't become emotionally involved.
No.
But it just makes it that much more enjoyable.
No, and as I have developed, now you hear that miracle in Richfield, back in those days, I thought I was part of the team. I mean, I had that feeling. I lived and died with those guys. Now, I don't live and die with them. I do my job. My first thought after a broadcast did I do my best work? Was that good? Was that good enough for me, for my standards? And that's what I think about after a ball game is, did I do a good job? Not why they won or why they lost.
Are you always satisfied with your broadcast?
No. Many times I walk away thinking, where was your head tonight?
Really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have real clinkers on occasion where I just can't seem to get in the flow, and I'm always about a half step behind, and as I get older, and you'll find this out for yourself one of these days, young man, you have little brain constipation where all of a sudden you can't remember a guy's name. You can't remember something that's important. That's why as I get older, I write more and more stuff down, because I know I'm going to have those little brain locks and need to look down and see what I forgot.
That's amazing. Not that I think that you think you're perfect, but for the average listener out there, they probably think that you never make a mistake. You probably have little tricks of the trade to cover those things up.
Absolutely. Oh, that is absolutely true. Yeah, I know how to cover faux pas now. I do the old Bill Stern, the extra pass to get the ball back to the guy who really has it when you've just said somebody else has got it. Now, people who watch on TV and listen to the radio.
He's giving away a few of my secrets too. Giving a few away.
They might. Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see that pass. Well, it wasn't there.
I'd be interested to know at what point in your career were you able to separate yourself from when you felt a part of the team to when you felt you were a broadcaster of that team?
That's a heck of a question, Tim, and I have asked that of myself on occasion. And I'm not so sure that I can sit here and tell you, yes, it was September the 14th, 1975.
I didn't mean it in that vein, but I just didn't know if there comes a time where you reach that point. Because ironically, believe me, not that I'm on the same plane as you, but when I started doing high school sports, 1986, Oberlin won the state championship. Mm-hmm. And I'm 21 years old, out of college. They win their state championship, and I'm thinking, I'm part of this team.
Yeah.
And now a few years ago, Open Door got to the state tournament. And you're right, there was a discernible difference. I felt as though I was broadcasting their games. And I don't know when you cross that line. Maybe it's after several conversations with you.
I think age has a lot to do with it. when you suddenly wake up one day and realize you're 30 years older than anybody on that ball club. And
I know how that is.
Yeah, and you just, you know, you're not even in the same time zone with those guys. That's easier in a point of separation. And I just, from experience, I've known this. It used to happen in baseball. There would be guys, when I was doing the Indians, guys I really liked, personally liked. Went out after ball games with them or had breakfast with them in the coffee shops, but really got to know them and like them. And I began to realize, you know, you're giving this guy a little extra because you like him, whereas there were some guys on the ball club I really did not like. And I felt maybe I'm cutting them a little short because they're really better than I'm making them out to be because I don't like them personally. And it's that sort of thing starts to compile, you know, your thinking to the point where then you finally realize, you know what, your job is to do your best job and let those guys hopefully do their best job. And if you're around, you can be enthusiastic and exciting because I feel, just as you do, I'm the guy who went to the ball game in place of the guy who couldn't go to the ball game, who's going to listen to the ball game. Right. And that's the way I approach it now. Is I don't coach because I have discovered many years ago that, you know, number one, I don't want to coach. Number two, I couldn't coach. And number three, I don't have all of the information at hand to start second guessing the guy who's making those decisions. So I don't coach. I try to provide enough information to the guy sitting at home so he can coach because he thinks he's a better coach anyway.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up. You know, every year you sit here, and right before we roll tape, I say, Joe, I think I've asked you every question that I could ever ask, and then a half hour flies by, and I feel like I could sit here and ask you 100 more. But we do appreciate you coming out to Lorain and joining us right here on the always exciting set of Sports Scene.
I've always enjoyed coming out here, and as long as you keep inviting me, I'll keep coming back.
Well, as long as you're the voice of the Cavaliers, you have a chance to sit in that chair.
Oh, when I retire, it's over, huh?
Well,
you forget who I am. Is that it, folks? You see how quickly they forget? The man turns on you. We've been together for over 20 years, and the minute I walk away from the Cavaliers, I am out the door.
I thought you were heading to the sunny west. That's the only.
No.
I've read somewhere that you were heading west when the day comes where
Well, we gave that some thought, but now Jeannie and I are thinking more about Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
Be down there close to the horses.
Well, that's within driving range of Lorain, so we'll get you up here a few more times.
You pay mileage?
Joe Bach does. Always good to see you, buddy.
Thank you, Tim.
Our guest this week on Sports Scene, once again, coming up to the city of Lorain to join us on WLCS TV 20 Lorain City Schools, Joe Tait, the voice of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and of course, we're proud to have him on AM 930 WEOL, your Lorain County home for Cavalier basketball. We hope you enjoyed Joe. Again, we hope you enjoyed the program, and until next time, I'm Tim Alcorn. So long, everybody.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools, TV 20 WLCS.
To purchase a high-quality copy of the program you just viewed, please call Lorain City Schools Television at 282-8400.